Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. Today's April 22nd. We're just about 6 days away from the NFL draft. Lots of NBA playoffs, MLB, so lots going on. How are you doing, Korea?
I'm good. It's obviously Earth Day. Happy Earth Day out there to everyone. It's Friday. You mentioned NFL drafts in a week. We're getting near potentially the end of the first round for a few matchups in the NBA playoffs. Obviously, we're now pretty much a couple weeks into the MLB season. Let's just get it going.
For sure. We'll start off with the Net Celtics from Wednesday. Uh, the story basically was the second half. Durant and Kyrie combined for, I believe, 1 for 19. They just couldn't hit a shot. Durant had 27 points, but 18 of them came from the free throw line. I think he was over 10 in the second half. We talked about the Celtics defense and how stifling they can be, and that they clearly were bothering Durant all game. Kyrie, after his huge game one, really struggled. Game two, 4, 13, 10 points. Bruce Brown and Dragic came up, and what kind of reason why this game was really close. Bruce Brown had 23. Dragic had 18. Dragic's been pretty solid off the bench for them both games. And then for the Celtics, I mean, no one really had a huge game. They were just super balanced across the board. Jaylen Brown led the way with 22. Tatum had 19. They had 7 players overall in double figures. Grant Williams had 17 off the bench. They had 7 double figures, and I believe it was 5 with 15 or more points. So just balanced across the board. And there's a couple of injury news in this series. Robert Williams is expected to make his return in Game 3, according to Waj, as of this morning. And the hope is that Game 4 he can go back to his usual minutes. And then Ben Simmons, Game 4 is the current timetable for him. We'll see if Brooklyn can make it 2-1 or if it'll be 3-0 by the time he comes back. But, Korea, what's your take on Game 2 and just the series as a whole with the return of Williams and Simmons?
Yeah, I mean, talk about the Nets. One of the reasons everyone pretty much has a question on them is because their defense, and it proved to be evident again once the offense was lacking. Obviously, you said Kyrie shooting horribly. He went 4 of 13, and then KD 4 of 17. Once the shooting, but obviously great at the line. But once the shooting starts to fall and suffer, they have to rely on their defense, which is obviously not even that great, which is why the Celtics, slowly came back in this game after a dominant first half for the Nets. I mean, you mentioned the whole balanced play for the Celtics. They got 27 assists as a team, which is amazing. Just finding the open man, playing team basketball. Obviously, Nets rely on KD and Kyrie a little too much right now, and it's proving to be one of their biggest downfalls. I mean, it's a pretty balanced game when you look at the stats. About the same amount of points in the paint, same amount of fouls, same amount of turnovers. Celtics, they really took that to an advantage. 19 points off of turnover. Excuse me, the Nets, 19 points off turnovers against the Celtics 8. So you look at the balanced game, just the shooting of the Nets started to fall, and with that shooting started to fall, began the rise of the Celtics comeback. Now Game 3, obviously you mentioned Robert Williams, huge inside presence for the Celtics. He's coming back, and I believe that game is tomorrow. So that's definitely going to be huge for this Celtics team, trying to open the gap. But then we mentioned that Ben Simmons is projected to make his Nets debut Game 4. So now Brooklyn gets that defensive help for Game 4, but it may be a little too late to seeing how this series goes. Obviously now they're playing in Brooklyn, so definitely the home court advantage will definitely be there, and Kyrie doesn't have to, brush the stage or hear anything from Boston Celtics fans in Barclays Center. But yeah, I kind of saw this coming. I knew the defense was definitely going to falter in these first 2 games, especially in that kind of environment, very loud environment. The TD Garden was pretty much for Kyrie. So, you mentioned Bruce Brown and Goran Dragic, really pulling the Nets back in this game, combining for 41. But other than that, I mean, you just look at how the Celtics played, and you mentioned literally every single person in double digits, even the bench role players, except for White. So that's the only player. Derek White. He was the only guy who wasn't in double figures for the for the Celtics. But yeah, you mentioned like no like stats stand out. That's just because they just played a balanced playing. They're just playing team basketball. They shot 60% from the field, which 50% from the field, which is why they had just a great game inside. I mean, Tatum almost had a triple double. Jaylen Brown led the team with 22. So, but I mean, Horford had a decent game, but he was fouled out. A lot of the Celtics were in foul trouble for most of that game, which is kind of interesting, especially Al Horford, who eventually fouled out. But I mean, Tatum, he played his heart out once again. This Boston team, I knew they were definitely going to give the Nets all they can handle. This is probably one of the most closest series. I think both games are combined less than 10 points win differential. So now they're heading to Brooklyn, New York. We'll see how this series goes tomorrow. And then that's pretty much going to be one of the bigger games this week. And can the Brooklyn Nets really, compete with this team and actually pull out a win instead of, choking the game in the fourth quarter both times. So, yeah, Game 3 is going to be especially big for the Celtics getting Rob Williams back, but Game 4 should be definitely big, seeing Ben Simmons, that defensive presence, make his debut. But I don't have any high expectations considering he hasn't stepped on the court in a whole 11 months. So, it looks like Boston is just taking control of this series heading into Game 3.
Yeah, you mentioned that by the time Simmons comes back, Game 4, that might be too late if the Celtics can take 3-0 lead, but we'll see if Brooklyn can get the home court, get the home crowd behind them and kind of carry them to try and claw their way back into the series down 2-0. And that, again, like you said, is on Saturday. So now we'll move on to one that isn't 2-1, but 3-0 in between Sixers and Raptors. It was kind of Raptors went up kind of big early, I believe, and Philly kind of stayed in it for most, and Embiid had, the game winner in overtime that silenced the Toronto crowd after it was the opposite, as we talked about with the Kawhi series when he hit the basically buzzer beater to win Game 7. But kind of what's more breaking of the series is that Shams reported a little bit before we went live that it's believed that Embiid has a torn ligament in his right thumb. Embiid's expected to keep playing through it, but you look towards, if they take care of business in this series against who you figure they're going to meet up with Miami the second round and how big a deal that could be. But that's obviously for a future to talk about. But I don't know. I mean, I believe Embiid's right-handed, so that could really affect his shot playing with that. I'm not 100% sure how much the injury affects your shot, but I would assume in your thumb that it affects it. But you look at Game 3, and Precious Achiuwa had a chance to put Toronto up 2 late in regulation, and he misses the 2 free throws with like 27 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Embiid misses the 3 to win it in regulation, and they go back and forth a little bit in overtime. Embiid hits the 3 with 0.9 seconds left on the shot clock to put Philly up by 3 with less than a second left in the overtime, and that was it. Achiuwa had a really good game other than 2 free throws. He had 20 points. Fred VanVleet really struggled. He only had 12, 3 of 13 from the field, 2 of 10 from 3. Gary Trent and Anunoby both had 24 plus, so they got pretty good scoring from their key players you'd expect. But it's another case that I'm really missing Scotty Barnes and his playmaking and scoring abilities. Harden fouled out I think it was on that Achiuwa foul late in regulation. He had 19, Maxey had 19, so decent games for them. But Embiid really had some huge shots, especially in overtime. He had 33 and 13. Kareem, what was your takeaway from this game? I guess the series as a whole, and maybe Embiid's injury as well.
Okay, first of all, for Embiid's injury, if he's shooting like this injured, I don't give a damn. If he's shooting 12 of 20 and has a torn ligament in the thumb, go ahead.
Do you know when he got? But was it early in that game?
I have no idea when it was, but if he's putting up 33 and 13, I don't mind it. Keep shooting. Let him shoot the damn ball. He's shooting 33 points with a torn ligament in his thumb. Keep going. Yesterday, Wednesday was the Joel Embiid show. I mean, no one really expected, Embiid to really step up like he did, because obviously last time he was really in Toronto in a playoff series, we saw what happened with the Kawhi buzzer beater, and obviously everyone was making fun of Joel Embiid crying, going to the locker room, and now I think we saw the blossoming, kind of the reverse of that, obviously silencing the crowd with the game winner in overtime against this Raptors team, with Drake sitting right front row. That was definitely nice to see, but look, this series is obviously a little more surprising than I thought. Obviously, no one expected Scotty Barnes to be injured game one. So that's pretty much kind of the tale of this series now. Just the dominance of Philly potentially making it a clean sweep just because of how they played. I mean, Harden, yeah, he fouled out, but, Embiid still had a great day, 33. Harden and Maxey put up 19. So they obviously depend on those guys a lot, but Embiid obviously grabbing the boards. I want to talk about Toronto for a little bit. And where the hell is Pascal Siakam? Where has he been? That dude needs to step up. I'm sorry. I'm calling him out. I know he's not going to listen to this, but Pascal Siakam needs to step up. This man has shot 6 of 16. He was a former All-Star last year. Where the hell is he? If he wants to be that guy, he is the sole reason that the Raptors are out of this series. Fred VanVleet has had great games in the past. That game 2. Trent put up a great game 3, and so did OJ Anunoby. Where the hell is Pascal Siakam? That is the one question everyone's asking. That's why I think this series may end in 5 right now. I had the series going to 7, but this series is ending in 5. If Scotty Barnes is not healthy, 1, and if Pascal Siakam is shooting the ball like this, 6 of 16, really, at your home court in your first playoff game with like a full Toronto arena, like it was packed there, and you put up 6 of 16. This is one of the problems. Like, Pascal Siakam is not shooting the ball well. He looks off. He doesn't look like he's together. So if Toronto wants to win the series, they need him to contribute a lot more than 12, 5, and 4 in the starting for 48 minutes. That's ridiculous. So I mean, and shout out Precious Achiuwa. I mean, he had a great game off the bench. You mentioned dropped 29, 11 from the field. Now I don't want to discredit him, but I want to talk about Pascal Siakam. His ability to not play basketball in this series is kind of the reason why Philly is pretty much just dominating them. And I think if Philly, yes, Joel Embiid's thumb is not 100% now, but I think this series may end in 5 the way this is going. Definitely electric. You mentioned it. The Raptors had an early lead. They looked like they were going to, try to make this series a little competitive now, but Philly just didn't give up, and this is the first time I actually saw Philly play great basketball, just like in the playoffs, and like in a very obviously road setting, but just a very electric setting in Toronto. So I'm not too concerned about Embiid's injury. If I don't know when he sustained it, but if he's playing on that, and if he still intends to play, and he's dropping 33 and 13. By all means, if you're hitting game-winning threes, by all means, go play, shoot the lights out for all I care for. But yeah, it's not looking good if you're a Toronto fan. You got to have Pascal Siakam step up, or this series is ending in Game 4.
Yeah, so Game 4 Saturday morning. We'll see if Scotty Barnes is still doubtful, so he'll most likely still miss Game 4. I'm sure the crowd will still be there. The crowd still supports the Raptors big time, so I'm sure it'll be another sellout crowd. And we'll see if the Raptors can avoid the sweep, and maybe if they can take Game 4, maybe they get Scotty Barnes back for Game 5. And we've never seen a comeback from down 3-0, but there's a first for everything. So we'll see if the Raptors can get any sort of momentum back, or if they're going home, or if the Sixers are going to bring out the brooms on Saturday and sweep the series. So now we will move on to the Bulls-Bucks game. The DeMar DeRozan show dropped 41 points. Vucevic had 24 and 13, Levine 20. After all three of them really shot very poorly in Game 1, all three of them stepped up in Game 2 to even the series. The biggest news, again, injury news, comes Chris Middleton sprained MCL. I believe 3 to 4 weeks is the timetable, so that would be like maybe the conference finals, I want to say, or maybe the late round 2. Giannis had another big game, 33 and 18. Brook Lopez had 25. They're definitely going to need Drew Holiday and Wesley Matthews, guys like that to step up as they head to Chicago now with the series tied 1-1. I don't know. I mean, I still think the Bucks can definitely win the series, but it's clearly not going to be as easy. It wasn't going to be easy to win with, even if Middleton was healthy, but it's definitely going to be tougher without him. But they still have guys that can step up in his absence. Corey, what was your takeaway from Game 2, and how big do you think Middleton's absence will be for Milwaukee in this series?
Yeah, obviously last year with their Bucks run, obviously one of the bigger questions is when Chris Middleton was going to step up, and he really stepped up throughout that playoff. But now they're going to have to do it without him, and I think this is going to be the Giannis Antetokounmpo show now, along with Brook Lopez, Wesley Matthews. But obviously you mentioned Holiday and Matthews are going to have to step up, in shooting to be that kind of anchor that they lost in Chris Middleton. But yeah, you mentioned it. The DeMar DeRozan show was on in Milwaukee on Wednesday night. He dropped 41. This is kind of that rebound game that the Bulls needed to really compete in this series now. And honestly, it's pretty even. Honestly, right now, I couldn't tell you who if I had a definite winner. I want the Bucks to obviously have them in the finals, but I mean the way Game 1 looked with both teams shooting badly, with the Bucks barely pulling a 7-point lead win, excuse me, and then the Bulls obviously shooting a lot better. And pulling out the 4-point win on the road, and now we know Chris Middleton for the rest of the series, and maybe he can make it for the Eastern Conference Finals in time if they make it that far. The Bulls definitely have a lot more momentum right now. Definitely have a great shooting day, but we'll see how Game 3 goes tonight for these two teams. But yeah, definitely, obviously, Giannis is definitely going to have to take his game to another level. But we've seen him do that so many times throughout this postseason and the regular season that it's kind of not really not expected, but something new from him. And then obviously we're gonna have to see Chris Middleton's absences, as in Drew Holiday and Wesley Matthews. They're gonna have to step up. Definitely a lot more role players off the bench are definitely gonna be needing to step up for this Bucks team tonight. So the Bucks are in trouble, but I don't think they're in big trouble. Definitely the loss of Middleton will probably affect them more if they make it past the first round against a team like maybe like the Nets, who have good shooters, like KD and Kyrie, who can drop that many points, or like Boston, who has good defense, and Tatum, who has taken his game to that next level. So yeah, the Bucks definitely. I think they can still win the series, but it's probably going to be a gritty series. I think the series may now go to 7, depending on how the Bulls start playing in Game 3 tonight.
Yeah, it should be an electric crowd in Chicago, so we'll see how Milwaukee handles the atmosphere without Middleton, and we'll see how guys like Holiday and Matthews can step up in his absence, because they're definitely going to need them, along with Lopez has been good the first 2 games, so they're going to need him to keep it up too as a scorer. And it's a pretty good matchup between him and Vucevic down low. Both guys don't play much defense. They're both pretty much scoring at will, so that should probably continue. So now we'll move to the Grizzlies and Wolves. This game might have been the most craziest game I've ever seen. Wolves are up 39-21 for the first quarter. Grizzlies go on like a 15-17-0 run to end the second quarter and get within, I think, like 7 at half. I want to say 5 or 7. The Wolves go on the run of their own and go up by like 15-20 plus in the third quarter. And then Memphis outscores the Wolves 37-12 in the fourth quarter to pretty much not blow them out, but I mean win by a pretty decent amount. Wolves don't crack 100 points for the second straight game after scoring 130 in the first game. Cat 8 points. He was in foul trouble with 5 fouls. One thing I didn't mention, I think it started in game 2. The Grizzlies completely benched Steven Adams now because of his matchup with Cat, and so I mentioned how getting Adams up top at the top of the key with Cat could be a disadvantage until the Grizzlies didn't even let that happen. So now they play guys like Brendan Clark more in his absence to kind of go smaller, but guys that can guard both down low and up top. And clearly it worked. I mean, Cat, they got him in foul trouble early. Even on the bench, he was clearly he was a little cocky early. There's a video that he's like, "Oh, we Minnesota now," and then we saw what happened. Draw was 5 of 18. Like you would think with the Grizzlies win, he would go off, but he was pretty bad. Bain had 26. Brendan Clark had 20 points. Russell had 22. Edwards 19. So pretty much average games for them. Not great like we saw in game 1. What's your takeaway from game 3 and the series as a whole so far?
I'm disgusted with this Timberwolves team now. I'm actually disgusted. What was that? What was that? You are up by 25 and 26 in the same game, and you lose. How does that happen? Look, obviously, what the Memphis Grizzlies are doing to kind of neutralize Karl-Anthony Towns now is working for them. You mentioned that in game 2, and now game 3, Steven Adams didn't even get to play a single minute. But obviously, Memphis going smaller is definitely disrupting Karl-Anthony Towns, getting in his head. I mean, look, if you're Karl-Anthony Towns, you need to shut up. Just shut up. Don't say next question. You need to answer the damn questions because you lost a very, very important game 3 where the series was tied. You were up by 26 and 25 in the same game, and you lose. You got to answer questions about it. Come on now. I mean, yes, you can blame the coaching, but why would you blame the coaching? It's the inexperience of this team. This team is very young, as we talked about. Karl-Anthony Towns, he's very young. Anthony Edwards on his second year. The only real veterans on this team are Pat Bever and D'Lo. And you can even question D'Lo as a veteran now, but still, like Pat Beverly, like what is going on here? Like what is this? What is wrong with the Timberwolves right now? I don't understand I don't know what is going on. They need to make sure Karl-Anthony Towns does not get his emotions over everything because this man is very emotionally fragile, and that's no diss or anything, but I can see his emotions get the best because he wears them on his sleeve, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to have them in check in these big games because you can do all your antics off the court and do all that rah, but on the court you got to play basketball. And this man has been in foul trouble back-to-back games early, only getting 10 or 12 points. And if you are the face of the franchise, you got to be better than that. So all I'm going to say is this. It's not over, but Karl-Anthony Towns, you need to shut up and step up. This is ridiculous. I have never seen a collapse that hard in the playoffs in one game. I've never seen anything like this. It was ridiculous. And you mentioned, like, the Memphis Grizzlies didn't have a great shooting day. I mean, John Morant had a triple-double. He went 5 of 13. But shout out Desmond Bane, their savior, 7 of 15 from behind the arc, 26 points, leading scorer. Then Brandon Clark off the bench, dropped 20 as well. So there's not great numbers in the whole for the box score for the Grizzlies. Just the collapse of the Wolves proved this game to be evident. And look, Karl-Anthony Towns, he has to get his emotions in check because game 4 on Saturday is a big game for him. If he wants to really compete in the series, he needs to shut up and play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I think for me, it's like, you talked about how the team is super young, and that's definitely true. And like, Pat Beverly is like, he's a veteran, so to speak, but he's like an emotional leader, not like a leader that's going to like, lead on the court. He's more just like more about emotion. So, they had Jimmy Butler like a few years ago. So they need someone like him that can like both lead, but also lead on the court and on the bench, like kind of lead both as a playmaker and as someone who can got someone like Cat to kind of calm him down. So I think that's what they're missing, is that kind of like leader, like a veteran leader who can lead them both, in the middle of the game and, and in timeouts and whatnot. So definitely a huge collapse multiple times for the Wolves in that game 3. And yeah, it's going to be a make or break game, I think, for Cat in game 4. I mean, if you go back to the play-in, he's in foul trouble, and then 2 of these 3 games he's in foul trouble. So I think he's a great guy, great player, great person. He just needs to figure it out. And if they go down 3-1, losing both games at home, they're obviously going to be in huge trouble in the series. So now we'll go on to the
huge trouble. Look at the next one right here. Don't get me started on this team.
The Mavericks dropped 68 first half points without Luka. Another huge game from Jalen Brunson, 31 points. Dinwiddie, 20. Maxi Kleber, 17. They had 7 guys. The Mavs had 7 guys in double figures in this game. So another game where, they were kind of spread out offensively. Mitchell, 32. Bogdanovich, 24. Conley, 21. They did their thing, but defensively, giving up 126 points to a Luka-less Mavericks
team.
I'll let you take the floor.
I'm done with the Jazz, bro. I'm done. Look, they don't even have Luka. Luka was not on the court. He was a game time decision. Obviously, probably going to play game 4. How do you lose at home? This is a home game. You have every single Jazz fan in the arena, and you still lose? I'm done with the Jazz. Look, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, where the hell are you? Mike Conley especially, where the hell are you? Mike Conley, you are the leader of this team. Where are you? Where are you? 2 of 7 from what is this? Donovan Mitchell, 1 of 8. What are these stats? How are you going to let the Luka Doncic Dallas Mavericks beat you at home by 8 and be up by 17 and a half? I don't understand what Maxi Kleber and Finney Smith and, oh my God, Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen, I mean, no disrespect to any of those guys, but they are role players. What? Oh my, I'm done with the Jazz, bro. And then don't get me started. I saw their New Jersey leak on TikTok. Most ugliest things I've seen in a while. I can't believe this. I cannot believe that I'm actually sitting here thinking Dallas may win this in 5 now after Luka was out for the first 3 games. How does Dallas have a lead? I can't believe this. So the Jazz, I think the Jazz should just fire. I think Jazz should just get rid of everybody at this offseason. Let Donovan Mitchell go. Gobert can play defense for someone else. I've seen a lot of Utah fans complain about this organization, and I see it. I've been watching First Take with Stephen A. and Kendrick Perkins, and then Richard Jefferson all clowning on the Jazz. They deserve it. They are letting a Luka Doncic Dallas Mavericks team beat them down offensively and defensively. I cannot believe this. Maxi Kleber is the most. They're making Maxi Kleber look at the next Stephen Curry from the bench. That man can't miss a 3. What is this? All I'm gonna say, Utah better figure out what the hell's going on, because Luka's coming back game 4, and if Luka plays like any way he was during the regular season against this Utah Jazz team, they have no chance. They are losing in 5. So I don't know what it is with Utah. I don't know what's going on with that organization as a whole, but they need to figure out what the hell's going on, because right now they are in a crash course heading the wrong direction. I will say this right now. If Utah loses this series in 5 right now, this series, they are not making the playoffs next year. I will guarantee you that. This team will not make the playoffs next year because of their inability to actually do something when they do make the playoffs. So I'm done with Utah. I'm done with Utah. You can go.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been a regular season team that struggles in the playoffs, and we're seeing that again here. I had Dallas in 7, kind of assuming Luka would be back by like game 2, but he's not even back by game 3, and they're still up in the series. I mean, I think it's possible they maybe let Luka rest one more game, just kind of seeing what happened in game 3, just make sure he's fully healthy. But we'll see. We'll kind of keep an eye and see if he's going to be back game 4. He might. Maybe they just want to end it in 5 and move on to the next round. But yeah, definitely, in front of what seemed to be like a sold out, Utah crowd, to be down by 17.5, give up almost 70 first half points. There's kind of been rumors that Utah could blow.
This is NFL stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so definitely we'll see if Utah can rebound, and I assume it's like Saturday's game 4. I would think maybe Sunday.
Yeah, it is Saturday.
So yeah, we'll see if Utah can even up the series, or if Dallas goes up 3-1 heading back to Dallas. So now we'll get up to your team, the Warriors, go up 3-0 Thursday night. It was a close game late, but the Warriors prevailed. Curry, Thompson, Poole all dropped 26 plus. Jokic had his dominance, but again, no one else really steps up, besides him. I mean, Aaron Gordon had 18. He was decent, but again, clearly missing 2 of their 3 best players. Curry, what was your takeaway from this game?
I mean, yeah, you can mention Steph, Jordan Poole, and Klay Thompson all dropping 27 more. But the story of this game was late. Nikola Jokic was one-on-one with Draymond Green. Nikola Jokic was probably just going to body him. Draymond steals it, pickpockets him, passes down the other court. That is the story of this game. The defensive presence late of the Warriors took this game over. This game was back and forth all game, very close. The Nuggets brought their A game. They brought everything they could. Nikola dropped 37 and 18. He had a fantastic game. This is why people are considering him as an MVP. But around him, we've talked about this many times. Other than Aaron Gordon, who dropped 18, there was no contributors. There were no contributors. And I think this is going to be the fall of Denver. Obviously, just because they're just missing Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. That is the sole reason as to why this team is down 3-0. If they were fully healthy, if both squads were fully healthy, I definitely say the series would go to at least 6 games because Denver would match up well. They would have 2 other potential shooters who would match up with Nikola Jokic, obviously MVP candidate this year. With that being said, I think this is going to be ending on Sunday. Game 4 is on Sunday. I think the Warriors will definitely win Game 4. I think the Warriors are definitely the hottest team in basketball right now. And I think on Monday, if the Warriors do sweep, Monday I will be getting the brooms. I will be bringing a broom here, and I'll just sweep out the Denver Nuggets. We'll say, see you next year, and we'll move on. But I think this Denver Nuggets team is good. I just think they rely on Nikola Jokic too much. I think their style of play, and this is nothing against Michael and what he does, I think they run so much through Jokic that once he is, the center of attention, and they just do cuts. That's their offense. They just do a bunch of cutting motion, and then they have Jokic with the ball. And then when you see someone like Monte Morris or Will Barton with the ball, they don't shoot well. 4 of 11, 1 of 5 from 3 for Monte Morris. 5 of 13, 3 of 7 for Will Barton. Jeff Green, 1 of 5, 0-2. Like there's no other real contributors because they're scared to shoot the ball. They don't have the confidence because they're role players. They're not starters. So definitely, I think the Nuggets are down on 4. I think the Nuggets gave it their all. I think their Game 3 was their all. I think this is all they get. They had all their cards on the table, and the Warriors still prevailed. I think this series is done on Sunday, and I'll give the Nuggets credit where it's due. They do have Nikola Jokic, who I think will probably be the MVP, but I personally think it should be Joel Embiid. But Nikola Jokic can't do it all by himself against the Warriors, who have the lethal weapon 3, as Stephen A. Smith likes to call it. I like to call him shooters squared because shooters cubed because obviously the 3 shooters. So shooters cubed, I like to call them. But yeah, this series is over. Get out the brooms. It's over.
So the Warriors will go for the sweep on Saturday, right? Or is it Sunday? Sunday. Okay, Sunday is Game 4. So tonight, Friday, we have the Heat Hawks heading to Atlanta. Atlanta looking to avoid going down 3-0. Bucks at Chicago, series tie 1-1. And then the Suns Pelicans. So we'll see both the Bucks and the Suns tonight without Middleton and Booker. So we'll see how those 2 teams kind of adjust without one of their, Bucks' second best player, you'd probably say, and the Suns' probably best player. So yeah, we'll talk about those games on Saturday and Sunday on Monday's episodes, of course. So now we'll go over to a quick MLB update. Talk about the Mariners taking 2 of 3, which normally you'd be happy with 2 of 3, but with the way they lost on Thursday, you kind of it's not as. But we'll start with Game 1, which was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, where the Mariners won 6-2. Robbie Ray went 6 innings, 2 runs. Suarez hit a 3-run home run in the first. It's looking more like the Eugenio Suarez trade, not the Jesse Winker trade with the Reds now. Kalanick solo home run in the second. It was good to see him. He's still struggling at the plate, so anything like that, it's good to see him get going. But it's good to see Robbie Ray bounce back after he struggled against the White Sox in his previous start. It was his first home start, and he looked really good. What would you take away from the opening win for the Mariners?
Yeah, you pretty much said everything I was going to say. It looks like the Eugenio Suarez plus Jesse Winker trade. Eugenio Suarez is hitting the ball well, hitting the ball pretty consistently right now. He's not. I mean, his batting average doesn't show it, but he's definitely a key contributor for us right now, especially in that 5 hole where he usually is around 4 or 5 for him. You mentioned Robbie Ray, another great outing for him, got another win against a pretty decent lineup in the Rangers, who have Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, pretty much the best middle infield in baseball, arguably, with 2 All-Stars there. So Yeah. Game 1, definitely great to see Robbie Ray easily handle this Rangers team, and great to see the Mariner bats go out pretty early with that 3-run homer from Suarez and light up this Rangers pitching staff, which is not good at all.
Yeah, and then game 2 was the Logan Gilbert show. 6 2/3 shutout baseball. After the start, he became the leader in MLB and ERA at like 0.54, 56, something like that. I believe Pablo Lopez is the leader now after his start the other day. But Gilbert's still up there. We saw flashes of him last year as a rookie, but kind of in inconsistent like fashion. But this year he's really turning into his own. I believe I saw a stat. He was like the first player since Roger Clemens to throw like over 16 innings and allow 1 run with 1 walk, something like that. So he's really turning into his own. Adam Frazier had 3 hits. Francis Toro had 2 hits. A little bit shaky with Diego Castillo in the 9th inning, getting it to 4-2 after it was 4-0, but still held on 4-2 the Mariners to secure the series win. What was your takeaway from Gilbert's performance and the Game 2 win?
I mean, you pretty much said all I was going to say. Just Logan Gilbert, he's blossoming into the pitcher that we all wanted him to be. He's having a fantastic start. I don't know how many Ks and how many innings pitched now, but he is definitely leading that charge. Definitely a good quality start for him. He is definitely lowering that ERA outing by outing, and he's just looking like one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball right now. Obviously, a little bit nervous with Diego Castillo on Wednesday, but still put out the win for us, 4-2. Clinch a series win. I can't complain. But then yesterday happened.
Yeah, it started out so high. The first 5 batters, Frazier gets hit by a pitch, Ty France home run. Jesse Winker and Suarez both walk. JP Carter home run, 5-0. They seem to have the number Taylor Hearn. I believe he made his MLB debut in Seattle, where he went 1/3 of an inning, gave up like 4 runs, I believe. So he's really struggling in Seattle. And then the 5th inning happened where Marco gave up 4 runs, but like 2 of them were earned. JP Crawford had 2 errors in that inning, which really killed kind of the rally, or not the rally, but the inning for the Mariners. Texas takes a 6-5 lead after 5 innings, I believe. Eugenio Suarez comes up with another big hit in the 8th to tie it 6-6, and then Drew Steckenrider gives up 2 runs in the 9th after 2 quick outs. It's always those 2-out walks that kind of kill pitchers, and he walks Adolis Garcia with 2 outs, and then it was a Cole Calhoun double, and I think Nate Lowe was the next hitter who singled to score Calhoun. And so the Mariners still win the series, but when you're at 5-0 after the first inning, you kind of want to hold down to that lead. Their pitching staff had been so good all season, so to give up 8 runs, albeit most of them were unearned because of the 3 errors, 2-3 errors. Again, normally JP Crawford, it's a Gold Glove shortstop, so you kind of hope it's just a 1 bad game for him and he'll kind of bounce back. So anything else to add on the loss?
Yes. Look, I'm not going to blame Marco Gonzalez for this. He was looking pretty dominant throughout the first couple innings. His changeup, his location was going great. And then obviously JP with the 2 errors, that kind of just unraveled that 5th inning. So I'm not placing any blame on JP. He already owned up to it. Obviously, everyone makes mistakes. No one is perfect. But I'm more satisfied with the series win here. But obviously, a sweep would have been better after that 5-0 first inning from us. Yeah, obviously, I knew the Rangers bats were probably going to get us one out at some point due to that, just the lineup that is. Obviously, Mitch Garver, we forgot to even mention him. He's obviously a great hitter. Adolis Garcia, obviously in the bottom of the 9th, he made that great diving catch against Julio Rodriguez, and I even had to give him props. I was like, what a catch from him. So, look, I'm not gonna sit and mope about how we lost to the Rangers with a 5-0 lead, but it was disappointing to see. But at the same time, like, I knew that the Rangers bats were probably going to get to us at some point. And obviously it's not even like Marco's fault for all those runs in that 5th inning. It was just the errors by JP, and he already knows it. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. Obviously I'll take a series win over a series loss any day. But yeah, we move on to play Kansas City this weekend. And I think definitely the bats will be living up to potential against these pitchers with high ERAs for all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then We have Brash on Saturday, who is absolutely filthy, and then Robbie Ray to close it out on Sunday before we go on the road trip. I expect a series win as well, potentially even a sweep with Flicks on the mound tonight. So, yeah, I'm not complaining. I think taking the series definitely is definitely a lot better, especially with a semi-stacked lineup in the Rangers who have all the hitting, but not that much pitching. And the fact that we were still a little competitive, even though we didn't score any runs after that first inning until the bottom of the eighth with the Eugenio Suarez clutch single, we still made it close. Obviously, the Rangers could have outpoured us, obviously, but still a fun game toward the end, obviously. But I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, tonight might be a bit tough. Brad Keller's off to a good start. For his first, he started 6-7 innings, no more than 2 runs. So we'll see. But I mean, he hasn't been great in the past. So we'll see if those first 2 starts are an anomaly, if Mariners can get to them, or if that continues. But yeah, I think again, a series win is kind of what. I mean, if you can win most of your series, you're going to be good at the end of the year record-wise. So we'll see if they can get another series win and head off to the road trip over 500 or. Yeah, we'll see if they can keep the momentum going. So now we'll get into some NFL. I believe this is what you were talking about, the Kadarius Toney. Yeah, so it kind of came up.
New York Giants.
It kind of came up. It came up literally like a half hour ago or 20 minutes ago, whatever. But Kadarius Toney did not show up to I believe it was like the voluntary workouts, and so there was some kind of question because obviously it's voluntary. You don't have to show up, but normally most kind of second-year players will show up, especially when you have a new GM, a new head coach, a new offense. But, Toney wasn't drafted by the new GM and the new head coach, so he's not affiliated with them at all. And I believe I saw that it was the Giants that were trying to make calls to trade for him, not teams calling about trading for him. So it seems like it's the Giants that want to trade him. His rookie season, he showed, flashes of huge potential, but it was kind of injuries and inconsistency and also just the Giants offense, of course, that kind of limited him. I'm kind of trying to think of just teams on top of my head. I guess Kansas City could be a team to kind of watch out for. Of course, Green Bay needs the receiver, so maybe Green Bay. I mean, you have a lot of teams that need the receiver, but is there any kind of teams that stand out to you that could be a good fit for Toney?
I mean, look, I don't really know anywhere else where he could really go other than the teams I've already talked about that need wide receivers. It's kind of interesting that the Giants are already trying to shop him out, and especially with the whole Deebo Samuel news about the other day about him potentially obviously wanting out. I think the trade wide receiver market is probably not going to be eager to call for Kadarius Toney as they are for Deebo Samuel. But obviously the Giants offense was absolutely anemic last year. It was booty cheeks. It was bad. It was atrocious. And I think Kadarius Toney was actually one of the highlights of that offense. Obviously, we saw flashes of him before he was obviously injured for a lot of that season. But if anyone needs a good slot receiver, definitely Kadarius Toney will be that guy. He can definitely get downfield. He has great route running. A lot of people don't really get to mention that about Kadarius Toney, but his route running is actually very, very good in this league, and I think a lot of teams will definitely want to use that. I thought the Giants would definitely try to keep him, but obviously you mentioned, new GM, new head coach, new system in the New York Giants organization with a second-year player. I thought Kadarius Toney would probably want to, show up, get acclimated in this new system, but obviously he did not want to show up, so I guess the Giants are already saying, all right, goodbye. So definitely interesting. Definitely be something to keep up with as we head toward the draft. But for now, the Giants, it's not looking good. You lose that kind of rookie kind of outburst star on that offense, which already has struggled in the past, especially with Danny Dimes, as a lot of people like to call him, and with Saquon's health and obviously that the depleted O-line, and with Kenny Golladay not getting any receptions, and just the health of that whole Giants team. Yeah, it makes sense that Kadarius Toney maybe want to get out of there and maybe want to go to a team that is in a better system and better place. Right now, the Giants, I'd say they're one of the worst teams right now in football, and I think after last season, I think they're one of the teams that is in one of the most strangest and weirdest positions to be in heading into next season.
Yeah, kind of looking at his numbers from last year, it was that week 4 to 5 span when he caught 6 for 78 and then 10 for 189. That was kind of when people thought he might have a huge rookie year, but then it's kind of nagging injuries and just the lack of consistent offense that kind of held him back from having a huge season. But I mean, if he's kind of not showing up to voluntary workouts, then yeah, maybe he's not liking the new system or the new coach, or maybe there's something maybe there's something in house that we don't know about. And so if the Giants are the ones trying to make the calls to trade him, then maybe they kind of sense that, or they already know that, and they're so maybe we get like a draft day trade with that, where it's like I mean, they already have the 2 top 7 picks. I mean, I don't think they're gonna get like a first round pick for him or anything, but maybe a second or a third round, something like that is possible. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the offensive line, how bad it was. So they have 2 top 7 picks this year. So we'll see if they address that with one or both of those picks. That'll be interesting to see. Saquon Barkley is clearly motivated. He talked about how he wants to, come out and have a huge season. Obviously, everyone says that. So take that for how you want. But he'll be a full year removed from the ACL injury. And I've always kind of said on my fantasy account that running backs who tear their ACL, normally that next season is kind of a struggle. And then it's that year after that when they're over a year removed, when they're kind of back to full strength. So we'll see if the Giants can address the offensive line, and then we'll see if Dable can kind of turn Daniel Jones around, a bit, at least a bit. I mean, people talk about how he was there when Josh Allen made his kind of leaps from year 1 to 2. So we'll see if Daniel Jones can take a step forward. I think this is going to be truly a make or break year for him and this offense. So we'll see how that goes. So now we'll go off to another recent report from Bob Condotta of Seattle Times, who said that Chris Carson's future remains uncertain. Last year, it was kind of weird because it was like after week 4, he was questionable going to week 5, and he was ruled out, but there's no like talk of him like being out for the season. And then for like the next few weeks, he was questionable, ruled out, till eventually he was ruled out for the season by like the double-digit weeks. It's a neck injury, so of course it's arguably the most brutal injury, especially for a running back with all the hits they take. And I mean, it hasn't been neck for Carson's whole career, but his whole career's kind of been banged up at at different points of his career. The Seahawks brought back Rashad Penny in a 1-year deal, and there's kind of been really no talk other than him undergoing surgery on Carson this offseason. So this is kind of the first news I've kind of heard at like any news at all about him. So what's your take on his career, and do you think the Steelers can maybe address running back in the NFL draft if they don't expect Carson to be back? For maybe he retires. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what's going on with Chris Carson. I think that's just a different situation for another time. Obviously, Chris Carson went down a lot last year with that neck, and then obviously he was out for the season. And then, the Seahawks were kind of at question, okay, who's going to be that lead back? We were still questioning Rashad Penny's good status, considering we drafted him in the first round back in 2018. A lot of people were, a little suspect about guys like DJ Dallas or, that running back by committee that Seattle was attempting to do last season. But then Rashad Penny, for like the last 4 or 5 weeks of the regular season, he just blossomed into this, top 5 running back, not even just fantasy, but in yards. He was just raking, getting through different spaces and all that. And a lot of that was due to Adrian Peterson kind of just coaching him on that sideline. So a lot of Seahawks fans just kind of assuming that Rashad Penny is going to be that guy next year. The Seahawks were trying to try and bring him back since he was definitely not. Since the Seahawks were probably not going to bring him back this year. Now we did. So with Chris Carson, it's a little tricky because obviously he's definitely a powerful running back. Uses all of his strength to gain those extra yards, but his health is definitely one of the biggest things that holds him back, and I think that's going to be one of the downfalls of Chris Carson. I think with his future pretty much up in the air, I think this may lead to a change in how Seattle uses their running backs. I think Rashad Penny will hopefully be healthy for this whole season to kind of, maybe have that breakout season that he has kind of much been claiming for. But, injuries have held Rashad Penny back, and so that was one of the things that Seattle fans were kind of like, oh, great, another first-round bust with Rashad Penny. But we saw glimmers of hope last year, so the running back room is definitely going to be a little interesting heading into this next season, seeing how, Rashad Penny was the exciting guy at the end of the year, but Chris Carson's been the back pretty much for the last few seasons. So We'll see what he does or what he chooses to do, obviously, with his injury status with his neck.
Yeah, I mean, after the NFL draft, the offseason kind of comes by quickly with mini camp, training camp. So I guess we'll just have to kind of monitor to see if Carson goes to mini camp, training camp, and all of that. And I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he retires just to kind of better his health, for his life after football. Because neck injuries, I mean, for any player are awful, but especially for a running back who's as powerful, like you said, as he is as a runner. But I'm sure he'll do everything he can to try to keep playing. But he'll kind of trust doctors and medical staff and all that to kind of determine whether or not he'll remain in Seattle or not. So now the last kind of bit of news that we had was back to the NFL draft. Trent Baalke said that the Jets are considering 4 players. He said that they received 0 phone calls about a trade, so it sounds like there's going to be no trades happening with that pick. He wouldn't say the player specifically, but you kind of assume it's Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker, and then a couple of offensive tackles kind of up there. Hutchinson remains the kind of clear betting favorite to go number 1 overall, so it sounds like that's probably going to happen, but not like a huge lock necessarily. Do you kind of expect Hutchinson to go number 1 overall?
Yeah, I remember a lot, especially during the college football season, a lot of people were obviously first saying Kayvon Thibodeau was definitely going to be the number 1 overall consensus, but then his stock started to fall once he got injured. And then obviously Aiden Hutchinson, obviously great season at Michigan, started to rise. And then obviously that kind of switch was happening in the process where Kayvon Thibodeau's stock was falling a little bit, and Aiden Hutchinson's was definitely on the rise. Now we see Trayvon Walker's stock really on the rise as of recently. He went all the way up to potentially number 2. And I mean, I understand it. I definitely see why the Jaguars could definitely be considering 4 different players for that number 1 overall pick. I definitely don't see the Jaguars trading that pick away as well, because they have a lot of problems with that team, especially no protection for Trevor Lawrence. He got sacked a bajillion times, and that front 4 is not the greatest, especially after Saxonville left. So they definitely need to rebuild on the defensive front. So I definitely can see him either going offensive tackle or defensive end, especially with all the talent with OT like Evan Neal and Okongwu out of NC State. All those guys in the top 4 or 5 can definitely go number 1 overall for offensive tackle. But definitely the Jags, I think definitely considering all your options is right. But I think in the end, I think they may go with the defensive route, probably with Aiden Hutchinson number 1 overall. But we'll see. But yeah, the Jaguars definitely considering is good, but I think they've already kind of locked in on who I think they're going to be drafting next Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is somewhat of a smokescreen report too, to kind of keep teams guessing. But you'd think that they probably have a pretty good idea of who they're going to take number 1 overall. But you mentioned how many needs they have. I forget where, but there's some website that had like each team and their needs and said like everything for Jacksonville. So except for quarterback, obviously, but yeah. So it was like them in Houston was like everything. So that was kind of funny. But that'll do it for this episode. Next week is NFL draft week, so we'll kind of ramp up our NFL draft kind of coverage on Monday and Wednesday's episode leading into Thursday, day 1. And then Friday, of course, we'll kind of recap the round 1 and all that. So it will be a lot of NFL draft content next week, along with, of course, NBA playoffs and then, some MLB talk as well. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you all on Monday. Have a good weekend, everyone.